roll it up, we gon' burn it down.
Hello and welcome back everyone to PKIdeas for another tournament reflections video. This time around we'll be looking at the fourth round of the Australian Young Masters, which I played against FM Charles Sai. And you might be surprised that Charles Sai is an FM with a rating of 1989, but he is because he performed extremely well at the zonal tournament at the start of this year in 2017. So kudos to him for achieving that title, and let's get this game underway. First move, we have d4. After d4, I played e6. Now, before the game, I was hoping that Charles would play his e4 French line against me, the one that he does after e4, e6, d4, d5, and knight to d2. And I had prepared a line against that specific French line, and I really wanted to play it. So, after he played d4, I tried my best to try and convert the position into a French, because in this position after d4, e6, e4, d5, you have a French defense with the starting moves just a bit reversed. But instead he took about 5 minutes to think about the position, didn't really want to go into his French line that he had, and instead he wanted to go and play c4. After c4, I played knight f6, and he played knight to f3. Unfortunately, knight to f3 is not the main move in this position. The main move in the position is knight to c3. After knight to c3, you have d5, knight f3, bishop e7, e3, castles, and bishop to d3, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and c5. And you have development going on as normal with chances for both sides. Engine suggests that I am slightly better in this position with negative 0.09, but it's nearly equal. So the game should go on after this. But instead he played knight to f3. After knight to f3, I played d5 and e3 was played, and I didn't take any moment to try and solve the situation out. I just wanted to try and open up the position and exchange a few pieces off the board. So d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and now bishop to e7. The idea of bishop to e7 is obviously moving that bishop out of the way and getting ready for an imminent pin after maybe knight to c3, e4, and bishop to g5, and also you're able to castle when the bishop is out of the way. After bishop to e7, knight to c3, castles, castles, c5, and now b3. Keep in mind that if d takes e5, bishop takes e5, queen c2, and bishop to d7, the position is slightly equal for white, but he doesn't have a massive advantage that would deem that he is winning. But instead he played after b3, c takes d4, after c takes d4, e takes d4, and now he's got the isolated queen pawn. When you're playing against the isolated queen pawn, you have to be able to make all your pieces go on this d5 square over here. So my idea is to move this knight on b8 to d7, then to b6, then to d5, the bishop on c8 to d7 to c6, and then to d5. So the whole aim of playing against the isolated queen pawn is to try and place all your minor pieces on the d5 square, swap a few of them off, and use your major pieces to attack this pawn on d4 at the very end. Now in terms of white's main idea is to try and swap the pawn off and gain a space advantage. So I played knight b to d7, putting my plan into action, after which d5, e takes d5, and now knight takes d5. Please do keep in mind here that bishop takes d5 is a mistake, because after bishop takes d5 and queen to a5, you have got a fork attacking this bishop and this knight. After followed by bishop to b2, and now bishop to b4. One of these pieces has got to go, and so white will be losing a piece. So that's why bishop takes d5 doesn't work. After knight takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, and now bishop to f6 was played. Bishop to f6 attacks this rook on a1, and unfortunately white cannot play something like knight to d4 because of knight to b6. So if he plays knight to d4, knight to b6, this black queen is attacking the white bishop over here, and if the bishop moves away, you've got an x-ray attack straight on the knight on d4. Instead, he did rook to b1, moving the rook away, and knight to b6, attacking the bishop anyways. Now he plays bishop to e4, and I did take a moment's hesitation to do queen takes d1 and rook takes d1. Taking the queens off the board is extremely good for me. It reduces white's attack, and the amount of pieces that he has to try and improve his spatial advantage is no more. After rook to e8, he played rook to e1. Rook to e1 is a blunder. And after rook takes e4, bishop f5, knight d2, I am bound to be winning back the rook because of this double attack over here. And the game should be fine for me. But here I did bishop takes e4. Instead of bishop takes e4, I did have the move rook to d8, After rook to d8, you have h3, bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, rook d1 check, king h2, and bishop e5 check. After which g3 and knight d5. After all these moves, you see that the rook on b1 is a completely useless piece that can go to no more squares, and this bishop on c1 is pretty much the same. Notice how this knight on e4 can't necessarily go back to c3 and try and attack my rook to chase it away, simply because it's going to get lost in the process. Now this all didn't happen because I didn't play rook to d8, and instead I decided to go for the more drawish variation and played bishop takes e4. After this, knight takes e4, position is full equal, bishop d4, king f1, rook d8, bishop a3, bishop e5, rook e1, f6. In this position, both of us are trying to improve our positional play and try and improve all our pieces before we go for a concrete attack and try and win each other's pawns. So after f6 he played g3, knight d5, my knight is centralized here, rook to c1, b5, bishop to c5, rook to d7, f4, bishop to b2, rook e1, h6, rook e2, and now bishop to c3. After bishop to c3, the idea is that I play b4, and this bishop on c5 is going to be misplaced in this position. Also, I wouldn't mind a swap of minor pieces, because any type of inequality would be good for me, since my knight will be able to attack all types of squares, both light and dark. However, the bishop on c5 is only able to cover the dark squares only. So after bishop to c3, knight to d6, b4, knight to f5, king h7, getting the king out of the way out of knight to e7. And now if he plays knight to e7, it's not going to be forced that I have to do knight takes e7. h4, h5, king g2, rook c7, bishop to f2, king g6, and now knight to d6. After knight to d6, rook c6, attacking the knight, now he takes a moment to do f5 check. After f5 check, I play king back to h7, no harm done, and now he plays knight to c4. Now my rook has the plan of attack of going to a6 and attacking this a2 pawn, and that's exactly what I did, rook to a6. After rook to a6, he played bishop to c5, and I played g6, getting rid of his strong f5 pawn. After this pawn goes, notice how white does not have an outpost on e6 anymore, so he can't necessarily do anything about it. And my pawn on f6 is extremely important in this position, stopping any kind of rook move to e5 trying to dislodge this knight. This knight is on an artificial outpost. It's not guarded by any pawn, but its surrounding squares where other pieces can attack it are guarded by pawns. So it's an extremely strong piece in this position. After g6, he decided to take, and I took. After king to f3, knight to b6 was played. And now, knight to e3. He didn't want to swap off knights. And I played knight to d7. Now this bishop is in a bit of trouble. It has almost no squares to go except for e7. So that's what he played. Bishop to e7 forced. And now I played knight to e5, king g2, knight d3, and now he played knight to d5, which is a mistake. After knight to d5, I played knight to c1. Instead of knight to c1, what I also could have played was, I think, rook to a5, as the computer suggests. And now after knight to e3, now you play knight c1. And now the activity of the white knight is no longer available for white to try and maneuver around. So as the engine shows over here, it's negative 1.38, so the game is bound to be a win for me. But instead, after knight to d5, I played knight to c1, and this is also negative positive, so it's a great advantage to me. After rook f2, rook takes a2, rook takes a2, knight takes a2, bishop to c5. After bishop to c5, knight to c1, and I'm going to be winning that b3 pawn as well. Now he took the free pawn on a7, and I took knight takes b3, and now he played bishop to e3. In this position, I thought that I had something by playing knight to d2, but unfortunately that was a blunder, because I lose my advantage that I had tried so hard to gain and actually achieved. And instead of knight to d2, which was the main mistake over here, which could have led to a win, I could have played a normal move. Maybe king f5, king f3, knight d2 check, king e2, king e4, knight takes f6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes d2, and b3. The game is going to be a win for me, and Charles would have resigned in this position. However, I did not find the correct move, the correct plan in fact, because in this ending I thought that if I had moved my king out towards the pawn over here, then my pawn on h5 and my pawn on f6 would be under attack, and I didn't want a miscalculation to cause a loss for me either. So I didn't go for any risk. After bishop e3, played knight to d2, which is the worst move possible in this position, losing the advantage. And bishop to c5, the game is equal, as the engine suggests right here. After the bishop swap off, the knight swap off, and the game should end in a draw. In this position, knight to e4, attacking the bishop, bishop takes b4, bishop e5, bishop e1, king f5, king f3, and now knight to d6. And I offered a draw, and then Charles, obviously in this position, since he didn't have anything else, accepted the draw. Playing knight d2 was the worst move in the position. So I think what happened right over here is that both of us were under about 2 minutes left, and both of us were under a time scramble. So I didn't take the opportunity to try and think about the position, and instead played this move of knight to d2, thinking that I would be able to move forward the pawn. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and that ruined my game. And then the game finally ended in a draw. With that being said, that is the end of the game. Please leave a like down below if you did, and also comment down below any of the analysis that I had missed. Also, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. And with that all being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time for the 5th round of the Australian Young Masters.